coming in for both Saiyajin God and... Who was the other one? I'm struggling.
That's a very good question. Who was the other one? Dreamer was playing tank.
That's correct. Yeah, it was Dreamer. That's correct. So Dreamer. So technically, Dreamer's still here.
Yeah.
But it is two players different in the tank position, and that seems to have made all the difference.
Speaking of Dreamer, on your screens there, threatening those books, having a sit. Get off that bench, Mercy. People work there. Is that just me, or is the hair like really blue for a moment?
No, that was the Widow behind her. It's also kind of blue in Russia, anyway.
It's just the miasma of Russia. At any rate, I do like the breadth of geographical locales we get to explore in Overwatch. It's very exciting. You get a nice variety.
So this is also going to be shield tanks versus dive tanks, and so far, it's Patty Pan feeling most of the hurt.
Indeed, feeling most of the hurt as one gets the wraparound for the headshot there, and that means that he can just kind of start getting aggressive now into THK as well. A lot of three-letter DPSs in this tournament. Nexus going to lose his life though as Xavier start to fight back, and Patapan as well has been able to respawn, so they're doing pretty alright here, Xavier. Looking like they should be able to dislodge Nova from the point, unless Crazies can start resurrecting some of these members. Gets Oyo back in the fight, but there's nothing he can do about Nexus. One is down, and Crazies and Oyo both, if they don't die here, they'll only be getting out with very little health yet. The first point belongs to Xavier.
First ultimate in the game as well is coming up from Queen. We talked about how quickly he managed to get Earthshatter's last game onto King's Row. This time around, gets it before any DPS. THK gets a Dragon Strike, but only just now. But Xavier, despite losing Patty Pan early, managed to push through anyway. They just recover so quickly. They're already onto me.
Oh, that's a really crucial shot. I think that headshot alone has stopped the snowball because they needed THK and a Dragon Strike. They get a res in, but immediately the pressure is there. So they have to pop the Valkyrie, they have to pop the Transcendence. Nova have kept the pressure up. Losing Blue hurts a lot, but losing Patapan maybe hurts more. THK still has no good angle on this Dragon Strike. Going to go for it now, trying to cut off this team. There's going to be the Respond Transcendence to come out of Oyo. Xavier, they're still scrapping this one out, but they're not really fighting on the point anymore. Nova have stopped the snowball.
And at this point, if Xavier can just touch the cap, get something on there in terms of progress, maybe they can still rescue this push. They haven't fully reset yet, so they're kind of half committed right now. They still have tank ultimates. Patty Pan's all swapped onto the Brigida. It's time for round number 2, and it's going to be Blue responding with his own Brigida.
I like how the moment you pick Brigida, you have to swing the flare once. Like, you can't not, right? That's the grab to come out, catches a few members, but no follow-up. Charge in from Queen does find Blue. There's a Dragon Strike coming across from
Dragon Strike.
Yeah, very quick one again when you consider he just loses his last one, but one is able to counter that back with some nice Dragon Blade kills. And that means that on the whole, it is going to be 2/3 coming through now for Xavier. Nova has members here. They should be able to dislodge Xavier, but they seem to be having a hard time of it. Shatter and Charge means Blue dies again. Not having a nice time here on this Brigida. Good deflect on the Fire Strike, but nothing to come of it. Really just saves his own life. Queen taking damage, but getting topped off. And if Tay can get a Transcendence available quickly enough, that could just be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Nova still taking a buffeting here on the point. Xavier.
Another Dragon.
Yeah, call it a delayed snowball. Another Dragon Strike. Third one in a row. Again, straight into a Transcendence. But Crazies is dead. One. Oh, gets stunned. Nice shield bash to come out of Patapan. And there is that Transcendence from Tay coming up in the nick of time. Xavier still in command. Still in control here. Shiki, Oyo, and One out of the picture. That's the critical mass they're going to need as the point belongs to them.
Absolutely ridiculous. The scariest thing about Xavier right now that needs to be respected so much is the speed in which they take these fights, the speed of decision-making in rotation, and then the speed, this is maybe the scariest one, how quickly they charge these ultimates. Absolutely ludicrous here. When you look at that, look at the time remaining, 4:22. Better than that, 4:32.
Phenomenal, really. That's what that is. I mean, when you consider that the first point, it was the same kind of thing. It was a quick reset, a quick rotation, sticking in the fight, getting ultimates up fast, not even having to use them. 3 Dragon Strikes over the course of that protracted fight. Xavier never actually fully reset from that fight either. They
didn't have to.
Yeah, there was a point where they backed off a bit, but they went straight back in because they started getting kills their way. And there was this moment there where the kills were roughly even. Xavier were actually out of ultimates, and Nova had members. They'd got kills. They'd shut down key members of Xavier, and they didn't press the advantage. It's like they expected Xavier to reset, but never actually forced them to. And because of that, Xavier went, all right, we'll keep fighting then.
Right now, Xavier look like they're going from strength to strength, and Nova are running out of options. Nova just keep falling by the wayside. Currently, one is their big play. He's been the one kind of clutching. Part of that reset, the small reset that Xavier did have to make, which is the only hurdle they had to get over, was when they started losing some members to One's Blade, changed up one player, Patty Pan, onto the Brigida, coming back in for the next push. He's going to say, well, if your biggest tool is going to be the Dragon Blade, I'm going to shut you down. He did do that in the next push. Meanwhile, a couple more Dragon Strikes came out, a couple more Earth Shatters came out. Queen lived the entire time as well. Area control so critical for Xavier Esports, and Nova, again, no options.
Xavier, I think strength to strength is a good way to put it. They are looking absolutely on fire right now. And if they can continue this, like I said, just before this one, if they can play the rest of the series the way they played Kings Row, then I've got to consider that this is a playoffs potential team here. Great catch on one, stunned and done. And Xavier are kind of measuring up to that Kings Row standard they just set.
Yeah, both players are going to get raised up, so it's a full 6v6, no resurrections on either side for the next 30 seconds. And with that, we'll see how Nova approaches. And you notice the difference in speed. They're taking a lot more time. They have to really breathe in the atmosphere, find out what Xavier doing first. Xavier, they didn't care about that. They went for it.
One thought he had an opening there, found himself actually surrounded by three members, had to pop back out. Xavier have had a little bit of warning now about what One is trying to do, get the flank on Tay, who gets topped off by his co-support there, Dreamer, who is really just keeping his back covered.
This is 1 minute of just dilly-dallying from Nova right now. They haven't really approached the point. Finally, the tanks are on there, but where's the support? This is a very broken up dive.
They're trying to pincer in from two sides, one going on the back side and the tanks going on the front, but it's just not paying off. Even with that connect on the pulse bomb, they'd already lost the backline support and the sniper. Oh. There goes one going down as well. Remember that Blue, he's only just respawned. He died quite early in that one. The res got blown on Nexus. Nova don't really have any pressure here, starting to throw ultimates into the mix, but here's the response from Xavier. Earth Shatter to come out. Patapan can keep tabs on Blue, who is not having anywhere near enough impact on this fight, and Xavier kept control of the point the whole time.
And I want to remind everyone as well, nearly 2 minutes gone here, not a single tick so far for Nova Esports, and they don't have the ultimates either. One is now going to be changing onto the Hanzo, and this is about the correct time for him to do that. Any latent would probably be too late, and for Xavier, still have ultimates play with the only member that has consistently maybe gone down is Patty Pan.
Getting the res in behind the shield. It's also the same shield they used to avoid the self-destruct. That self-destruct has given Nova some good space though, so they're finally getting on to the point. We'll be able to get a third here before Xavier can kind of brawl their way out of this. Oh no, they stepped off, haven't secured the third just yet, and now the contest is there, but the charge forward from Nova has paid off. They've killed up a couple of members of Xavier. Dreamer is maybe looking for a res here. Quick Dragon Strike from one to zone some folk away from the point. They do finally get that tick that they so sorely need and are keeping the pressure up on Xavier. Nice Primal Rage to keep the supports out of the fight, away from the point. Anyone who wants to contest it does so without healing. That means the point is finally going to go the way of Nova.
That one was a difficult one for Nova to approach. When they finally found a couple of picks there, the tanks just couldn't quite keep things alive. Not enough damage was remaining, so opportunity time for Nova now. Potential to maybe get the snowball rolling. At the same time though, they're kind of lacking ultimate, so they should be looking to get some farming, find whatever picks they can from Blue, and lead the way from there.
Now the dive continuing for Nova. This time though, Xavier have a decent number of ultimates that they should be able to use to hold this one off. I don't think we'll see a snowball from Nova, but hey, stranger things have happened. With that catch on Patapan and the Dragon Strike out one.
Where did the Dragon go?
Yeah, maybe into the ground or something. That was a little unfortunate.
Olivier made it 8 it.
Must have, but at any rate, they're still getting some kills through. This is looking good for them with Olivier down, or rather THK down. Olivier as well, for what it's worth. The rally not really paying off. Queen is going to need a pretty beastly Earth Shatter. Dreamer just flying into the thick with Valkyrie so that there is at least some contest. pays for it with his life.
I'm going to say it looks a little bit dire for Xavier as 2 ticks are about to disappear, but they got ults. They got to run in with Tay.
Self-destruct.
Expect Queen to land a shatter as well. This could be a big game changer.
Olivier is at least able to create some space with that self-destruct, but they need follow-up, and they're not getting it. The Transcendence from Oyo saw everyone safe. One picks Tay as well. He's largely uncontested. We complimented THK for the quickness of his Dragon Strikes. One following in his shoes, gets 2 with that one. And with that, Xavier's last presence on the point disappears. I thought 432 was nuts. It's going to be contested by a 350. They are close enough that they may as well be the same.
That's a very good recovery from Nova Esports. The 30-ish kind of seconds, 40 seconds here will make a decent enough difference for Xavier. That's about another push and a half. And for Xavier's case, if they fast enough, maybe even 2 pushes, because they have been going pretty quick. But Nova, look, they kind of rescued that, right? Because A was a bit of a disaster, took them until about 1 minute 20 remaining to finally get the A cap out, but B turned out so well off the back of fantastic Hanzo play, very quick Dragon Strikes again. Good compliments for both Hanzo players now for getting those up.
Yeah, and I mean, that is part of the nature of the beast. When you're attacking that point B, you can just chuck out a lot of arrows. You've especially got that Storm Arrow as well. It's not hard to hit the broadside of a Reinhardt shield. You've also got, you've got tanks, you've got the Diva, you've also got the Brigitte in the mix there. A lot of things to charge up an ultimate against. First Dragon Strike was a little bit whiffed though, but certainly one's presence absolutely getting felt on that offense. You
got to feel for it as well because it's the accuracy, right? Shields won't give you the ultimate charge, but it's everything else, all the extra damage coming in with the damage boosting from the Mercy players as well, backed up by Widowmaker damage. It's those kind of combinations that are very, very effective. Note that there is currently a pause, so once we get that one resolved, we'll be able to get back into this match, and this is starting to turn up really quite well because we got a 1-1 scoreline, with both teams kind of had a bit of an edge. We'll say that Xavier had more of an edge on King's Row than Nova had on Lee jumped out, but currently we thought this was maybe all one and done for Xavier Esports, but Nova definitely come back quite strong.
It's a little bit surprising, isn't it? I mean, I was just saying, now I feel like I'm a bit of a broken record. I said after King's Row, if Xavier can play that way throughout the rest of the series, they're looking really good. And then they did. They played that way on their offense. And then Nova just kind of pulled one out on the defense, on their own offense, I should say. And it worked. Maybe that's not a permanent thing. Maybe that's a flash in the pan compared to what is looking like quite consistent, high-quality play from Xavier. Certainly this time bank will tell. But even so, this has suddenly become a very hot match.
So we've got to see if Nova can repeat this, because the key word is consistency, like you mentioned here. If Xavier can continue that lightning offense, we should expect another cap out. If they don't get another cap out, certainly a decent amount of progress. But for Nova, very slow approach onto A, barely capped it out with, they had about a minute 20-ish remaining. If that happens again, we're unlikely to see them get too much distance here.
Alrighty. Nova attacks first. They do have the less time, and it did take them about 2.5 minutes to break that point the first time around. That's probably not time that they could spare in this situation, but 350 is close enough to 4 minutes. It wouldn't be the end of the world.
THK's positioning there was really interesting because he's waiting to see if he can catch out Blue, find a Widowmaker pick on his own. Would have been pretty big for his team.
Ooh.
And with that, Blue's actually take down Paddy Pan. That's the one consistent kill they can always get.
Yeah, it's also the one consistent raise they get, but it takes Dreamer's Res off the table. One is marching on forward. Padapan has not quite answered any of these snipers just yet, but popping Shiki's mech actually gets traded out. It's a lot of pressure that Nova are now able to put onto the backline as Xavier popping THK and a headshot on Padapan from Blue, winning the sniper duel. This should be Xavier losing this point pretty quickly. Nova cracking it far faster than they did on their initial offense.
Well, part of the problem is if Dreamer has to go res Paddy Pan, it's happening quite a bit here. A, he's not healing the rest of his team, but also tempo has shifted while Paddy Pan is dead. Blue is taking more position. He's getting a little bit more aggressive. Meanwhile, it's also the fact that Blue can take bonus shots on the other members of Xavier. That's all happening while Paddy Pan's trying to get back up, and then when he gets res, dies again to Blue anyway.
Oh, catch on crazies. That's important. Slows up Nova just a touch, and Xavier really do need to slow Nova right down here. They have those ultimates coming up. They were able to snowball last time when they didn't even have an ultimate advantage, so Xavier really need to get some stuff working for them here.
Speaking of slow at the moment, Xavier Esports started on fresh ultimates, so we need to see those come up quickly if they're to contest Nova right now, who do look like they still have snowball potential. The support ultimates coming up, tank ultimates coming online, and a Dragon Strike from one ready to go.
mean, that Dragon Strike alone can be super impactful. When it doesn't get eaten by Divas, that is. There it is, straight out. Not going to get eaten up by Olivier. Not going to get any kills, but THK dies as he is separated from his team. Now Xavier hurriedly trying to regroup. Queen taking an absolute battering from Storm Arrows, and the dive is going to pay off. Wow, headshot with the Sonic Arrow. That's not one we see every day, but always a pleasure when we do. And raise on to Queen. Xavier can actually start to stabilize from this. They've got that Transcendence coming up. They lose THK again, though. That's so many times now he's died on the Genji, not getting anything. That's Dragon. And yeah, another one, because one has been hitting so many of these shots. Ah, THK again. Poor guy cannot catch a break here. I think he is yet to pick up a kill as Genji on this defense here. And it's looking like Nova are going to do it again. It is not a flash in the pan. One does get bumped off the edge of the map, but it's already 2/3 for Nova. The remaining members on the point want to battle it to the last. Xavier have finally started to stabilize, though.
That is the one critical kill that they needed. Once they got rid of one, it was all, what was it, all though for Nova, but they started to fall apart. Members didn't quite have the positioning remaining, didn't quite have the threat remaining to continue capping.
Starting to sound like a BoJack Horseman script. It's all over for Nova once one is done.
But I do want to say as well, they didn't quite get 2 ticks importantly. It's close, not there.
Yeah, and that is actually quite crucial. That is quite a large difference, all things considered. But also good to have got that progress, because it will put the pressure on Xavier inevitably, even if Nova get no more progress here.
Let it be reminded as well that this is still a pretty decent position for Nova to play in. Here comes THK.
Oh, man, even when he's on the Doomfist, one gets one. It's going to be a
trade zone.
Hey, look, THK, he did it. It looked like Nova were getting to get a little bit beaten back there. They lost one and Oyo got picked, but suddenly they're just starting to blast apart Xavier on the point as the res comes in on Oyo. And that is THK in a tight spot. It looks like they're going to be able to tick up to that second, third in any minute now. Oyo even getting Dreamer for good measure. Nova still keeping the pressure on the point, and one has been able to rejoin the fray. Taking a bit of a beating, but he's also taking a lot of Xavier's time. Those look like Xavier starting to stabilize, beat back Nova, who weren't quite able to get any further progress. Came close, certainly, but you'd be happy to have the progress that you did get there as Nova. Even coming in for a last hurrah. They've got ultimates potentially to back it up. Primal Rage out from Nexus. Oyo's got a Transcendence he can pop on the point now. Not quite getting the kills onto Xavier just yet, but they've got the presence, and now as the kills start to roll on in the overtime, Meteor strike out as well. Oh, it's looking like he's got a slam dunk. Dreamer doesn't quite connect. That was so close. Bastion, though, bit of a sneaky pick, but not going to pay off. And I think Nova might just be able to push through a touch more progress. Xavier are kicking and screaming, and Nova are just beating them back pick by pick by pick.
Blue would love to stay alive right now, so would one. There's just these last remaining members.
So little health.
There's a lot of, there's still a potential for Xavier to come back in here. Tay can come out alive with the Transcendence. Patty Pan's going to show himself a Doomfist now, and for Nova, this is probably it. Finally, they will get beaten off.
Yeah, it is over for Nova on that particular offense. And it turned out that Patty Pan's own Doomfist is what they needed at the end there, but man, how little health one had for so much of that fight. It felt criminal.
And crucially, again, did not get that second tick, 63.1. After the first push, it was about 62%. So ultimately, it was Nova getting only roughly 1% extra than what they got in that original push. The other thing to consider here is I'm quite honestly surprised that Nova Esports decided to go off the beaten path here. They had a winning combo. One on the Hanzo was doing a fantastic job getting such quick Dragon Strikes. Goes into Doomfist, it's effective, but is it as good as the Hanzo? I'm not too sure. In fact, I'm confident it's realistically not. Blue kind of got desperate there as well, came back as a soldier. A little bit less impact than the Widowmaker, so you just feel the inklings of desperation from Nova instead of staying patient. This is a more patient team than Xavier.
You can respect wanting to take those higher mobility picks just to get back in the fight a bit quicker.
But they weren't out of time yet.
Exactly, they weren't out of time just yet. Nova were kind of a bit too ready to be in that panic mode, but I don't know that it would have made all the difference there. Xavier did seem like they had just enough left in the gas tank. pull out a defense there. In fact, evidently they did, and now 63.1% is what they have to beat.
So let's consider here that on this map, on Assault maps, you only get 8 minutes total. Xavier capped with 4:32 remaining, which means they actually finished the whole map within 4 minutes with some to spare. If they can do that again, they won't even need to do that. They just need 63% on that beat.
And they will fight that out. I mean, we saw how they can fight. They turn losing situations into winning ones. You cannot sleep on this team for even a second, or they will find a way in. Indeed, already starting to buff it back. Nova, who are really just starting to bow and buckle under the pressure. Oyo now being forced back. Shiki having to go to the high ground to try and contest THK, but he's going to pay for it with his mech. They trade it back, actually picking up Queen as the big one. It opens up the sightlines for Blue, who immediately converts on THK. And they catch Dreamer, who was flying in for the res. Xavier do have to accept that they have lost this one.
And the lesson has been learned from Nova. This time, Xavier do not get that one attempt cap that they have gotten so consistently over 2 maps now. Patty Pan can still not outsnipe Blue. This is becoming a real issue for Xavier now. Maybe even, you know, a bit of a weakness, perhaps.
Which is interesting because Patapan was looking very good at other junctures in this series. As the Dragon Strike was to try and split Nova apart, but Transcendence did mean that Oyo could cross it with impunity. It's only Blue the casualty there. But that being said, it seems to me that that's all Xavier needed for the open, and Crazies had to go back to res Blue, and that allows Xavier to get onto the point where they can land a massive Earth Shatter and start cleaning up kills left, right, and center. Just off the back of those two, now popping Oyo as well. That's the support line out of the picture. Queen once again absolutely going off, and Xavier will crack point A. Now it's on to point B, where they're going to only need to collect that 61.2%.
A late death as well. A late death as well. We'll see how fast Xavier can approach this B point. Last time we saw this, they capped A so quickly, their bodies were basically already onto B, and see now the rotation coming in. Ultimate's ready to go as well. Patty Pan's on the Doomfist. They have 2 minutes, just under 3 minutes rather, to get 60.
Oh man, Nexus does not quite have that Queen magic. He is going to at least get a couple of kills, though. They've rescued this one. They've saved the fight. That is crucial. They've stopped the immediate snowball. But I tell you what, I mean, 2.5 minutes, plenty of time still for Xavier to get that percentage.
Certainly is. It's also certainly enough time for Nova to secure the defense as well. We've seen teams really struggle on this B point, and one thing that we haven't really seen from Xavier is what do they look like once the defense is stabilized. We see what Xavier can do when they play off momentum, play off snowball pressure, but if they don't have that, what do they look like?
And in all fairness, even as back as King's Row, Nova didn't have that stability on the defense that you're mentioning there. Whoa, catch on THK. Meteor Strike as well. Just going to absolutely punish it. Yeah, very aggressive. Doesn't quite get the quick pickup, and one is maybe in a touch of trouble. Does find Tay. He's going to be just fine. And Xavier, again, just getting beaten back relentlessly now with Nova so far forward, right up by Xavier's spawn even. Have to go a long way back to the point, but it's wasting Xavier's time.
Xavier right now coming up to 5 ultimate, soon to be 6. This is going to be the moment we should start to see the sparks fly for their team. 1 minute 40. Now it's starting to get a little bit dire. We're not in desperation mode just yet. For Xavier, you got to go in now.
And that's the Christmas tree. Patapan, I'm not sure what that Meteor Strike was all about.
I think he wanted to get in fast.
And it has given them some positioning, but losing Tay as he just gets shot out by his counterpart, one dunks Patapan as well. It's just fratricide here. The Reinhardt kills the Reinhardt. I was hoping that Shiki killed Olivier for a moment there, but Xavier, they had the full Christmas tree. Now it's going to be going in with even ultimates.
Well, it's Christmas on both sides of the planet right now. One's about to get himself an ultimate, as on THK changing off his hero pick onto the Brigade. And for Xavier, we were at this position about a minute ago. They had roughly the same amount of ultimates, but the difference is Nova weren't quite as well equipped. Now they are far better equipped than Xavier even is. This is going to be an even tougher push for Xavier.
And I think one of the toughest pills to swallow for Xavier was THK has not got that Dragon Strike. You almost can throw it out from the base and then make the swap. That's totally fine. And immediately THK dies. Olivier does not get the same mileage out of a self-destruct. Xavier, they've either got to make some magic happen now or reset quick smart. They don't have time to spare, but they're just getting pummeled on the point. Another great Earth Shatter, that could be the one, but no, there's a Transcendence from Oyo, and they don't have the numbers anyway. Xavier, you got to get out. You got to reset quick, or this map is going to Nova. 15 seconds left. I don't think they can do it.
This is probably going to be at nearly 10 seconds remaining. No more ults except for the rally, and he's down as well. Blue removes any hope from Xavier right now. It's a dream and 4 other members, and unfortunately that's probably not enough.
Someone's got to get there, but nobody can. And that means this one is going to go over to Nova. Never get tired of saying that. And that also means we do get to go to our first full 5. We are tied up 2 for 2. We're going to have to go back.
It's actually 2 to 1 right now. We've only seen 3 maps.
Oh my goodness, it feels like it's been longer. Just the way they're trading.
Because we've had 2 time banks.
Hey, we might not be going to our full 5 then. This could just be Nova closing it out. This is absolutely nuts, this series. Easily the closest we've had so far.
Also, a little spoiler there. I don't know if you saw in the corner, but I did peep a real quick Rialto popped up. So maybe we're going to go back there. I'm hoping.
Think that that's maybe on the cards?
A real possibility.
A little bit of a Rialto, another Rialto map here for the Escort for the last 4th pick of the day. Think that could be the way to go?
It certainly could be, but I want to talk about the fact that it's been a bit flip-floppy, right? We had the beginning Nova, okay, Lijiang Tower. It was a good start for them. It wasn't crazy because the 99 to 99 Guardians map was also in the mix.
Yeah.
Then you go to King's Row, okay, oh, this is now Xavier's series of win. Surely, look at the Volskaya attack, 4 minutes 32 on the time back. That's absolutely ridiculous. And then something happened for Nova. They weren't alive on the defense, but suddenly on that offense, it just all clicked, and then into the time back, still weren't quite favored. And what you expected Xavier to have this lightning offense again in time back, just didn't happen.
And turns out your hunch was right, because we are going to go over the Rialto then.
I mean, it's a hunch. It's kind of like, I had the info, to be fair.
Yeah, you had the inside scoop. Literally said Rialto. You literally knew. It wasn't even a hunch. You literally knew. But yes, that means we are going to go to Rialto again for a 2nd time in a row now. I'm looking forward to this.
So I think there's a difference. This isn't quite like the same scenario we saw between Machi and Talon, where we kind of feel like maybe Talon's seemingly getting a little bit desperate here. Maybe they pick a map to throw a spanner in the works. For Xavier, I don't think they're there. I think Xavier know that they can still get the series. I think they know that they've been outplaying Nova in several regards, especially on King's Row. So going on to Rialto, this to me says that Xavier are purposely going here because they have a plan, they know exactly what they're doing. This is not some wild card.
And I think as well, the fact that they did well on King's Row helps them here, because naturally the Escort is quite similar to the Hybrid, especially when you consider that the strongest parts of King's Row for Xavier were the Streets phase and then attacking onto C, just the unbridled momentum that they had. I am hoping we will see a similar thing here. I don't know if I'm necessarily expecting it though, because Nova do also seem to have really hit a stride on the defense, just based off that time bank on Volskaya. That was a level of defense that utterly wasn't there on King's Row, but they've shown their capacity to do it. Oh, Oyo takes a swim.
I mean, how deep is that? I can't, surely it's not that deep in Venice.
It is, it's the ocean.
Oh, really? What do you mean? You dive in and you're just like, well, now I'm in the open water.
Yeah, it's the Adriatic Sea.
Okay.
It's not a lagoon or anything.
It's actually French. It's like the Mariana. Like you go down.
I actually don't know. I don't know if most of the canals have like a floor underneath them, or if it's just like straight down. I guess
what, is a city floating on the ocean? Like,
well, no, like the parts that aren't canal are like island. They don't float. I don't know. I don't know. I want to look it up now. Can someone find that out for us? Do the canals in Venice have like a bottom? And like,
I think you just Google that later.
It's not just the ocean floor, is it? Like, because they flooded the city as a defense mechanism.
So we are seeing double Pharah and double Widow come out again. So what we saw from the Machi Talon matchup was only one team, that was Machi, did want to run the Pharah. This time around, with both teams doing this as well, there's a lot of work for these Widowmakers to do. They have to get the opposing Pharah as well as the opposing Widowmaker.
And I wonder if either of them were maybe watching that matchup, saw how that Pharah was getting played, and are maybe wanting to employ it that same way in their own right. So far, though, it's DHK really getting the work done.
I'd like to believe they had this plan from the start, though, and you can see the aggressiveness from the Pharahs directly onto the opposing Widowmaker and then into the dogfight. Man, there's a lot of work for these DPS players.
Woo. And there's Blue getting the catch on THK. So after popping Crazies and Oyo, THK ends up paying for it. Blue immediately after can convert onto Padapan. Xavier is moving the cart forward though. So these picks don't actually mean too much at this point.
As Blue getting a lot of these good counter trades, so while the cart moves on, this should now be enough kills to finally get the cap on through. It'll be just token resistance from the remaining tank members, and Queen forcibly removes them from the cap.
He just like, that was bouncer levels, you know? You're out of the club, buddy.
Not out of the trouble just yet as well. I think Nexus should be quite fortunate to save his own life there. The cut will continue to move on through. And this is the kind of Xavier offense, the speed of the offense that we expect from him. And as usual, Blue will take up Padapan.
One catching THK, though, is a little bit of a changing of the tune there. But, I mean, Xavier is still moving the cart forward at this point. We'll have to pull back to...
That's a new one.
Queen's in the drink.
What was he doing on the boat? That's a little bit weird.
I think maybe he got conked off the bridge or something and then suddenly realized, like, oh, well, there's no way I'm getting out of this. I kind of like it. Like, those boats just remind me of Frogger.
I do get that as well. Frogger with a lot more danger here. As Nova sitting on a lot of ultimates, and I feel like we've been in that situation before, especially when you look at Volskaya. In terms of at least the economy, that's one thing they managed to do quite well.
Ooh.
That's one trance down and soon to be a res down as well.
No one can hide.
Yep. They do at least get Oyo back into the fray, though, and that evens up the numbers. That could be just more important.
Good cleanup.
Nicely done. Now Blue flank headshot onto him. Not quite able to react in time, and now these members can't pull back too far. Padapan kind of owns this backside now. THK throws out a barrage, gets 3. The only member left alive was Nexus. Took Tay down with him for sure. That's a diving duo in one respect, but Xavier keep the card moving, and that's what counts.
Xavier used 4 ultimates, but they won. Nova used 3, and they lost, and that's in the unfortunate thing. Their ultimates do not get converted on in any sort of way. This is a... What? That was actually hilarious. Blue spent a lot of time trying to just sidestep, but...
This is so... this is all over the place.
Padapan got his revenge.
Yeah. That was bizarre. Padapan is still alive here.
No,
but
it's not Xavier Esports.
Nexus goes down to Padapan. They didn't like actually address him. I mean, Xavier are going to cap that point. Like that went so wrong in so many ways for them.
With very little resistance. Again, note that Nova, they seem to get stuck in these moments. Now, this is very similar to what we see on King's Row. I think you were definitely right about the fact that when the cart comes into play, I feel like Xavier just know how to play this card.
It seems that Nova are good at stopping those defenses when they're playing that, or rather setting up those defenses, stopping the offense on those static position type maps. You don't get that on a payload map. And it does just seem to be that's what's stopping them from tapping into that otherwise great defense, which means Xavier's great offense is going largely unanswered.
There's a little bit of a stall up here now as tank ultimates do come up online. Shiki with the grab. Where's the follow-up?
They're waiting it out, but because he didn't follow it up, they ended up doing nothing. Oh man, Queen was even able to get an Earth Shatter out after that, and they were able to convert off it. He could have Earth Shattered in. He didn't want to go in behind Queen. He also could throw down an Earth Shatter in front, so he ended up just standing there, not even swinging the hammer, doing nothing while the members of the team were caught up in front of him.
And the big difference is Queen's landed a lot of good shatters right now. Nexus has tried, but most have failed. Right now, we're going to see if he can land one. Finally, there it is, because Queen got out of the way.
Yeah, but even then, Olivier had the barrier up and nothing happened. They end up trading Reinhardt for Reinhardt. Finally, Olivier going down, 1 back on the Doomfist. It's worked for them in the past. They're going to stick with it here, and it does mean Xavier aren't quite going to barrel into the finish just yet, but with 3 minutes to go and only a couple of meters remaining, about 10 maybe, I think they can do it.
I'm a little bit surprised that Nova aren't opting for their own Junkrat here. You do see that THK swapped on. This narrow choke point is very important for a player like a Junkrat play to break through. So expecting Nova to get some work done here, still have a decent amount of time as well. Just under 3 minutes now. Double support ultimates about to be online with the grab.
There are some pretty nasty combinations that Nova can pull out here with this nano boost. Curious to see who he puts it onto. I would not be surprised if it is Nexus who ends up getting the boost. It's definitely not going to be Blue, I'll tell you that much. And indeed, they've actually put it on 1. He was the other sort of presiding option but it's not paid off for them just yet. Even going in from the side, he finds himself in the middle of a team covered by a Transcendence as he goes down. Exactly. Now the grab to come in here out of Olivier. Earth Shatter from Queen. Once again, a great connection. A quick lickety-split. Riptire doesn't get any kills, but they've got the rest off the cleanup anyway. No one from Nova to really contest. One just kind of throwing himself in as Pittance, and Xavier going to cap out unsurprisingly.
With a respectable time as well. Not a crazy time. This is not a Volskaya 4 minutes and 30-something seconds. This one is a little bit under that, but it is, again, still decent. 2:03. They can be reasonably proud of that. Some slow up on the latter part of B, and most of C was a little bit slow, but the A offense was very well played. The speed at which they got through that choke point opened up the entire map, really putting a lid on top of Blue as well. Despite Blue getting some really nice picks with the Widowmaker, did feel like as soon as Xavier had the card in position, Blue's impact started to teeter.
We need to see Nova kind of dig deep here, I think. They need to set a comparable time, but again, if Kings Row was anything to go by, they are much more stoppable on these Escort maps compared to what they were on Assault, and also compared to what Xavier are on Escort. So, see if they can kind of dig deep here in the same way that they did on Volskaya. Otherwise, I do very much expect Xavier to take this, and in that case, we go to that game 5, and maybe that's when we find out if it turns out Control is the difference maker.
I think the other difference here is when we go onto these Reinhardt versus Reinhardt maps, and note that Kings Row is one of them, Volskaya not quite. We did see a lot more Winston, we saw a lot more D, we saw a lot more dive in general. Going onto Rialto, where it does favor the Ryan side combos, this is really where Olivier and Queen play just a little bit more better, maybe even quite a bit better than Shiki and Nexus. That's been the consistency, at least for me.
I mean, the consistency of Queen's Earth Shatters is really something phenomenal. It's not even necessarily mistakes from Nexus. It's just Queen always finding angles, finding ways to get in, connect, minimum 2 members. I don't think he's actually gone below 3 for this entire series so far. That is almost unheard of.
He's in the same group as Samurida, so we'll get to see that matchup.
Oh, that's going to be nutty when we do get that one coming around. Samurida was connecting a crisp number of Earth Shatters just the other day against Blank. Speaking of crisp connections, that's an arrow to the face for Blue. THK off to a hot start.
Well, you can't snipe Pattypan out because he's not playing the Widowmaker anymore. I mean, technically he could get sniped out, but it's usually in those Widowmaker duels that Pattypan is just not being very good in. Yeah. Bit of a liability, one of the few liabilities of Xavier.
Again, I'm really liking the asymmetry that teams are able to pull out. If you can't quite get the upper hand in the head-to-head, hey, change it up. Go on to Doomfist. Do something else. Kill Nexus.
An aggressive defense here as well. Nova didn't quite have that on their own. This is similar to how Machi played their Rialto defense. Get up in the faces on that corner, especially if you're going to run stuff like a Doomfist. You have to make those walls work. You have to get them in the choke. Once we're in the courtyard, this Doomfist pick is not that good.
They're really making a lot of this work for them, Xavier. Indeed, making the map work for them. Blue has got a nice flank around here. But again, Xavier, they've got plenty of opportunities to go in for another fight before we get to that courtyard. You see Pattypan diving in for Blue. Trades his life for it, but they're happy to take that one because Nova, they've got some, lacking rather in the ultimate department where Xavier are starting to come online. Now Valkyrie in. They need to save Olivier here, but they're coming up on Earth Shatter. Dragon Strike. Or Dragon, yeah, it's connected. There we go. That's what they needed.
THK gets himself an extra 1 as well, so it does feel like once one got that kill onto Pattypan, Nova started to get some distance in there. By the way, the fire pick is going to work pretty well from them, at least should be. It's going to really be able to, you know, from what we've seen as far as impact on this first point already. We saw that in Machi Town, we saw that in this matchup on the first attack as well. If one gets a good angle, a good barrage, doesn't even necessarily need the setup from the grab either, could be lights out for Xavier.
But so far, it's kind of been lights out for Nova, the opposite of their namesake in a way. Xavier have just always found ways into the fight. Ooh, catch on Pattypan. Queen does get an Earth Shatter out, but he doesn't get that same connection and that same follow-up. One, though, dies mid-channel, the Rocket Barrage, as the two teams start to pile into one another. Oyo holding on to a Transcendence. It's going to have to do work for them. They've killed Tay, though. Nexus traded his life for it. Blue getting beaten back. And finally open up with a Dragon Strike, but Nova don't seem too willing to take this fight. They're pulled back to lick their wounds.
I gotta say as well, there's a okay, this is an interesting space to land.
I think it's partially just to make sure he's going to be safe. Avoids the Dragon Strike. Oh my goodness. This guy is like me, dodging responsibility. Yeah, the combo didn't quite connect on the side of Nova. Xavier, though, going to have a lot more luck at that with that grab Dragon Strike, and that's the second time THK has had a great Dragon Strike in as many moments as Blue has had one failed one. Xavier looking unstoppable on the defense.
And look at that card positioning. It's only just kind of breaching that choke point now. Once we get into the courtyard, if we get into the courtyard, that's when it will get difficult for Xavier. But if Xavier can continue this kind of corner pressure, so much so, like one is even wanting to go onto his own doofus. That's how much work that Xavier is doing currently.
Well, it
actually, worked out.
Yeah, paid off, and that does mean they should be able to crack the courtyard, even with this res on here. They've displaced Dreamer, they've left Tay vulnerable. He goes down to a fire strike. Patapan, though, no hesitation, straight back into the back line as they drop Nexus. Xavier, they find their mojo once again, diving back in onto Blue, who did pop down Dreamer. That's a Meteor Strike right on top of the Widow. Kills her in front of her own respawn. Patapan is miles behind enemy lines at this point. One, with the Meteor Strike, has finally cracked the courtyard as we push into overtime. And that actually means Xavier can probably go in for one last hurrah if they so want.
And I feel like they should. I feel like, I mean, it's a toss-up, right? They don't want to give too much momentum to the other side. It will depend on the respawn distance, but it seems like they're getting close. Expect a charge.
Oh no, bumped off to the side. Queen was punched away. He knows he can't go for it. Dreamer trying to stall it amazingly, and it's going to work for them. Dreamer does go down. Olivier did as well, but Queen got the trades in. Oh, we got the picture-in-picture still. There we go. Amazingly, it's Tay doing the work on the side, but I think Nova have started to crack this one. Xavier a bit too lean on the members, and without the tanks in there, it's just a few too many squishies. THK is not the man for the job. Patapan goes down, the res on one. They will finally crack point A, but look at how hard it was just to get into the courtyard. They've only got 2 and a little bit minutes left.
I don't want to rest just yet either, because of the kind of picks that Blue's able to find here, especially in the middle of that choke point, in a very dire scenario amidst all the chaos, lands these perfect shots just to collect some kills. Xavier did try. You have to credit them for that one, but the defense was finally broken. Now let's see how far Nova can make with this one, because so many ultimates on the side of Xavier, including a grab strike combo.
One, looking for the pick, looking for Tay, finds him, no hesitation, has a Meteor Strike, gonna slam dunk down on top of Queen. No, finds Dreamer, but he has still gone 2 for 1, indeed 2 for none on the support backline, and it is Xavier in disarray. Now that Nova kind of have some momentum of their own, they're starting to look just as scary as Xavier did.
And I gotta say, the grab did go out, the follow-up wasn't quite there. Maybe the grab shouldn't even have been used. Xavier lost too many members. Tay went down straight away. He even had opportunity to use the Transcendence. Xavier had the ability to hold the point there, but they couldn't.
Now they're just having to find a way back in, Xavier. Having to find another way to start setting up the defense, but one is going so unanswered. Finally goes down, but they've already done the damage here. Even rezzing THK leaves them at a numbers deficit. Finally picking a few more members though with the Dragon Strike, makes space. But indeed, the cap went through already. It's too little too late, and now Xavier in disarray as they try and pull back to take a better defensive spot, losing members. That is not the defense that they were after. Nova keeps storming on through.
Turns out the payload doesn't matter. Turns out even on this game mode, Nova Esports, once they find their stride, once they get a little bit of wind behind the sails, they're starting to look as unstoppable, maybe even more than Xavier have been on their attack.
And on the other side of those trade wins, it does seem that Xavier a little in the doldrums in this defense. The Earth Shatter goes wide from Queen uncharacteristically. They do at least get some kills off the back of it, or at least a D-mech. Res on Queen as well. And Xavier are starting to force Nova back a little bit, but can't help but feel that that's only a temporary state of affairs.
Well, maybe a little bit more than temporary considering the time right now, 1 minute and 35 seconds. So for Nova, they can't match the time of Xavier anymore. They're going to need to look for fights very quickly. Cart needs to start progressing again as well. They cannot afford the stall up.
One, nearly with an ultimate, looking for another backline pick. If he can get a quick one like he has so far. They're off to a good start. There he goes. Finds THK. The Dragon Strike from Blue didn't quite connect, but there's the Meteor Strike diving onto Tay, who is able to duck into cover, but one able to rejoin the fray to pop up Queen. Really hurts that shield's usage. And I think that's part of it. Able to disrupt Queen so much more has one been there.
Oh.
The Earth Shatter. At long last, Nexus finds a connection of his own and the self-destruct from Shiki to follow it up. Xavier still kind of holding ground around this point, just with a few members that are left. Thankfully, they still had Patapan. They've been able to kind of force back Nova.
That was strange because Xavier basically only had supports remaining. It was Patapan and Tay, just the two supports. And I think maybe one extra member, but Patapan on his own, you just could see it from the top down there as just a Brigida. Kind of just shooed Nova away, just ran at them with the rally, and Nova said, well, we're out of here.
Well, Brigida is the tank support DPS that you need, the right man for any job. Jack of all trades, master of all of them too.
Positions.
Yeah. Defense who? And that's the Dragon Strike out now from Xavier to split apart Nova. Does so successfully, but one doesn't care for how split his team is. He's going to go in. Blue's own Dragon Strike not quite going to get the follow-up because a few too many members were on their backs. They need to stick on this payload. It's going to be an overtime rush push here. Xavier can start leaning in to the defender's advantage to tie up the series. All they need to do is win a fight here. Res on Nexus. The Transcendence is long since expired for OYO1. Going to start rushing back into the fray. Rally about to come up for Patapan, and the Transcendence will see them safe until that point. There it goes. Now they get aggressive. Pop Nexus. D-Mech Shiki on the offensive now is Xavier. They're going to be able to hold here. No Miracle Meteor Strike from one. Xavier tie up our series. We are indeed getting our first full 5.
And these two teams as well, it's just been so back and forth. Map 5, by the way, is a guaranteed Ilios, and this has been a treat because we've seen two Rialtos, but not only that, we've seen two kind of different Rialtos. This one has been kind of Doomfist dominated, at least definitely in that second part of the attack and defense phase. In the first part, we did see a lot more fire play come through. But as soon as one player, as soon as someone said, well, I'm going to go Doomfist, and the other team's like, well, we're also going to do that. And now they're both like, well, we're just both doing it.
This has been absolutely wild. I mean, it has honestly got to be one of the most exciting metas we have having so far. I mean, it seemed like there was a pretty stock standard way to play, at least coming into this, but really the teams have been mixing it up. There's some really exciting and interesting ways teams have been countering out certain strategies. I mean, using Pharah on Rialto as a counter to Widowmaker is just like that's only the beginning, right? And that is weird in the first instance.
It's more like you know, Pharah trying to outplay her counter, but it's more so that Pharah hard countering this case the shield tanks, the Ryan and the Zarya, but the other hard counter that was discovered, which doesn't take a lot to discover it, is actually play the Doomfist. You can get past the shields pretty quickly.
Pop the shield up, displace, disrupt.
So that's the two things. So to be quite fair, it's teams kind of just figuring out, okay, well, everyone's just going to play the Ryan Zarya here because that's currently standard for Rialto. What are the ways you play around it? One way is Pharah, the other way is Doomfist, and this just happened to be the Doomfist match.
Absolutely, and an absolute joyous one at that. And we really saw one coming alive. I honestly think that was a big proponent of Nova's strength on the offense there. Patapan was not having the same effect on that Doomfist. There's no two ways about that.
He was for a while, but not compared to one.
Yeah, exactly, not compared to one. And that's the thing, we're seeing for the first time, actually, a lot more of the head-to-head that we haven't seen in a lot of our other matchups where, you know, players have been playing the exact same things, but it is going to be Ilios that we go to for that tiebreaker. And this is where we see if Lijiang Tower was just a one-off kind of thing or if it is indeed the control belongs to Nova.
And if that is how it falls, I mean, if you're Xavier, you're really just feeling the loss of that Volsky because if control's not your game mode, you don't want to be at a map 5. You really wanted to finish this one 3-1.
I think this is a threatening one for them as well. Purely because of the existence of Ruins within this situation. Because we have seen Blue getting the better of the Widow duel time and time again. And it's unavoidable really on Ruins. Beyond that, I think we're going to see, unsurprisingly here, chunk of Pharah. It's something that THK, I think, can feel quite confident on.
I will say one thing. When we were on Lijiang Tower, it was Dreamer and Saijin got on the tanks. It's been Queen and Olivier staying on the tank line for the remainder of the series, even now going into Diva Winston-centric maps.
And hey, maybe that will be the difference maker, but already out the gate here. Quick setup from Nova thanks to the Lucio.
Long rotation.
Yeah, long rotation indeed, but it means to get around the backside of Xavier, who aren't necessarily expecting it. Here's the stuns coming in from one. Absolute disarray. They catch Dreamer on the flyby and Tay to boot, and that is more than enough kills. What remains of Nova should be able to secure this point unless THK does something crazy, but I don't think that is a possibility here. The point will go the way of Nova.
It's the kind of point where THK can't really feel like he has too much impact either. He can do a lot if his team is alive. The constant peppering of the rockets from sky high, Nova will struggle to deal with, but if the rest of Xavier is gone, well, THK has to fall back.
And the peppering of rockets is important in that opening skirmish, but now that we're beyond that point, they're having to use them to break the point itself. That favors Nova a little bit, but not when Xavier have anything to say about it. Absolutely piling on top of Nova. This is the fight that Xavier wanted as the opening skirmish there, and you compare that, at least when Xavier lost, they traded some back. That was a wipe from Nova.
Now we're going to expect maybe Blue feels like a Widowmaker here. You have to do something about THK. Maybe you have to go into the fire yourself. Something has to be done. This current composition for Nova is not going to cut it if you want to take down the skies.
And that's the reality. I mean, it's got a lot of strength points, this team comp. There's going to be the rally out. They don't want to give away those high-impact ultimates. They don't want to make those changes just yet. But they're not going to be able to answer Pharah with this. There's the Rocket Barrage. Immediately chews through that armor from the rally. And already Nova low. Nexus gets popped. Shiki needs to be careful here. Xavier still got plenty of ults in the pocket.
That's the thing. I feel like they should be using these here if they're concerned about losing the point. Nope, don't be too scared. I mean, Tay going down, Transcendence still available. Now Queen has to be the one that gets the job done.
They are staying in the fight for quite a while here, Nova, but I do feel that the longer it goes on, the more it favors Xavier, because there we have it. THK is able to stay in the sky the whole time. Again, the point remains, no one from Nova can deal with the Pharah at this point. That has to change, and there you go. They're going to counter it out with one of their own.
And instantly, it's going to be one going to the fire, which means Blue will take up the Brigida duties. Still need to have some impact onto the ground. They've actually mirrored the entire composition of Xavier. The big problem is, because they have to swap up two members, they start on no ultimate charge.
And there's the rally to come out from Patapan. That's a nice chunk of health. I mean, if nothing else, same team comp, but just more health on the side of Xavier. Yeah, Oyo. Double Transcendence out now. Essentially, everything is even Stevens as far as ultimates go. Xavier still trying to find an upper hand. Nova still need to fight their way on, pushing 90%. Now Olivier going to lose the mech. Tay as well in trouble. Blue getting just enough work done on the back line there before going down. But Nova have tipped the scales at this point, even getting to res Blue for good measure. They will be able to wrest control at this point back, even as Xavier push it to 99.
And resing Blue right now is very important because they got to get this rally into effect before the start of the next fight. Also, Oyo, the reason I mentioned him was because he was so very nearly dead, just teetering onto the edge, and then pops the Transcendence in time to give his team a chance. Responding Transcendence from Tay, unfortunately, wasn't good enough for Xavier to make their progression onto the point. And finally, Nova take control. Do have a lot of catching up to do. The rally did go into effect though, so Xavier have to be the ones carefully approaching this.
Patapan will have his own rally in just a moment though, so that does help even things up, and both teams have charged up a ton of ultimates. Double Rocket Barrage is a factor here. Patapan, there's his rally out, but already the health gets chewed through quick smart. They do pop Oyo though. Transcendence not on the table anymore. It's Tay. He has gone down, but he's the only casualty. That means he can get res. Xavier remain in advantage here. The numbers are there. One more rocket. He's got it. Look at that. And there's the barrage out, uncontested. He knows he's a dead man to that self-destruct, but it doesn't matter. Xavier have the fight. They've got the point. Now it's on Nova at a massive numerical disadvantage to try and keep this one alive. For the well map of Ilios, just sticking in there for a few moments longer with the Transcendence, but it's not enough to allow the team to rally and regroup. Tay's own Transcendence means the last pockets of resistance from Nova will not be able to get kills, and the first map at Ilios goes the way of Xavier.
And I want to talk about the significance of this first map when, first of all, obviously they're going to have some momentum going into the further stages of Ilios, but secondly, if Ruins is next, if Ruins does get seen here, and there was a possibility, and we did say Nova is probably favored there in the Widow matchup, it's important that Xavier started with that one stage win so that we can get to Lighthouse, but now we don't even need to worry about that. What we do need to worry about is if Nova do, well rather, not we, but Xavier need to worry about if Nova can win this, and they do go to Ruins. You got to say, this is probably Nova favored.
Certainly. I mean, you wouldn't want to be in that situation, right, where you lost well, then you ended up on Ruins, and Patapan just gets dumpstered by Blue on the Widow v Widow duel. But at any rate, neither of those things came to pass. First of all, Xavier won on Well. Second of all, we're now on Lighthouse, and both running pretty similar team comps again. Triple tank out from Xavier. This is the full GOATs.
So this is the interesting thing that happens here. Xavier cannot contest one, but also Nova need to contest Xavier off the point where Xavier are strong.
Ooh. Yeah, and one can keep pummeling rockets onto this. This is what is good against GOATs, but when Xavier are already on the point, it's very hard to do so.
93%. Cap is over. Blue has swapped onto the Junkrat as well. They know exactly what they are dealing with, and they have the correct composition. The thing they are lacking is current control of the point. They are also now lacking members.
Oh! Trying to come in from behind, but I think Xavier, too slow, and Xavier kind of read it. They do get a couple of kills. Popping Dreamer is quite big. It takes the Coalescence off the table, and because one didn't actually die, he can just get back in the sky and start pummeling the tanks of Xavier as well. Xavier retained control of the point, but this is not comfortable. They need to get a quick fight win here, or Nova can start staying in this one.
You feel like that Nova will eventually win the war of attrition, that AoE damage will come on through, and it will be Xavier. But currently Xavier, they're still collecting kills, they still have control of the point. That's what's most important. They will take up a huge advantage, 40% and counting.
What an absolute scrap this has become. Blue gets nothing with that tire, and now THK wants to run forward and threaten with a grab. These teams, they just want to fight non-stop. And unfortunately, it's Xavier winning those brawly fights. Nova, they need to slow the pace down a little bit. Let the AoE do its job.
But this is exactly how Xavier want to play. They want to fight non-stop because that's how GOAT's composition functions. 3 tanks, 3 supports. They want to run at you, utilize their healing, utilize the brawl factor. Nova don't want to do that. Nova want to poke. So you're absolutely right. They got to slow things down. At the same time, though, they're running out of time to do that.
And it's because they failed to slow things down earlier. Now they have to play to Xavier's tempo. They don't get a say in the matter. Oh, THK could get locked off the edge. No, gonna be just fine. Regroups on the point. Now the question is, can they deal with one? Yes, he can. The beam too strong. Patapan did unfortunately not get to use the rally, but the grab is good. Connects just right. We're at 90%. Nova, they don't have a good way of getting on this point here. Every member that comes back up gets popped straight back down, and THK is running rampant on the Zarya. No contest. Xavier do it. They change the tune of control. An absolute masterclass of how to play a GOAT's composition. They're going to close out the series 3-2.
And exactly that, because GOAT's composition here, they're even playing it into a disadvantage. The disadvantage being it's Nova reading it correctly, playing the fire, playing the Junkrat, but the damage was done. The early foundation was set by Xavier Esports, and they just keep running away with it. This is the perfect team to be running exactly that composition.
And it's one of the few places you can do that in that slightly compositionally disadvantaged situation is a map like Lighthouse on Ilios, where you do actually have the cover over the point. If you set up on it quick enough, you can just brawl out. You can see yourself through to the point where you're one fight away from closing it. That's exactly where Xavier were. They played it flawlessly, start to finish. Absolutely deserved the win on Ilios. And therefore deserved the win in the series.
I gotta say, the characteristics of a good GOATS team, you need lightning quick responses. You need to be able to make quick decisions fast, move quickly, and be decisive with a fantastic Reinhardt player. All of those qualities this team encompasses. So well played by them. Slow start, Li Jiang was unfortunately a bit of a disaster. Volskaya was unfortunate for them. You got to give credit to Nova as well. They had a great series themselves, kept it super entertaining. Rialto, again, was a treat. One's Doofus is absolutely deadly. Blue had an absolutely deadly Widowmaker. Patapan just could not measure up. But ultimately, look, Kings Row, Rialto, Ilios all going the way of Xavier. A 3-2, our first best of 5, and it's a great one.
And I have to say, having seen both of these teams now, how close it came at some junctures and how good they're looking when they are really firing on all cylinders, There are no bad teams in Group B. There are no teams you can sleep on. There are no one-shines anymore. There are no bazaars anymore. There are no teams where you can feel pretty confident you'll beat them. If Blank sleep on these guys, if Cyclops Athlete Gaming sleep on these guys, Hong Kong Attitude, if anyone sleeps, not just on Xavier, but also on Nova, they're going to suffer losses. And in this group, you're only ever going to be a few losses away from relegated.
And I feel like when you look at Group B, right, when you look at the players and the teams, you see how many of them are representing their country in this year's World Cup. I mean, that's it. World-class, quality caliber players across the board on basically every single team. Rip incipients. All the other 5 teams, though, the other 5 teams all have world-class players on.
Call them incipients.
But they still look decent against Hong Kong Attitude.
Yes.
So I do agree with that. Every single team in this group is starting to look really, really good. So it's going to be hard. Like we talk about, okay, who's going to be in the top 3, who's going to be in the bottom 3, and now it just looks like a big jump.
I don't know. Yeah, especially across all of Group B. But hey, it's been a joy to watch that. In fact, to watch all of tonight's matches.
Right, well, let's get into that. Let's take a little bit of a recap over what we saw this evening. So we started out with Monster Shield Korea versus Mega Esports, a 4-0 sweep. And a quick one at that. Mega will have to address that loss and move on, although it was probably Mega's hardest game. Moving on to match number 2, Talon versus Machi Esports. A draw in the middle to spice things up, but ultimately a Machi-dominated series before we closed out the final match of the
And that was the new roster of both Machi and Talon, but of course for our final one, you've just seen it. Old school, these two teams largely unchanged from Season 1 of Contenders Pacific, and both looking in brand new form. Nova and Xavier. Xavier picking up the 3-2 in honestly a really hot series the whole way through.